Expiry dates, specifically chicken. Is 1 day over the expiry date on the package too much for you? And if not, how long is too long? All of that and more on today's first episode. G'day there guys, it's your main man Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/AmITheA. Now if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, and get ready for some spicy stories. Let's go. Am I the a-hole for refusing to eat out-of-date chicken? So this literally happened just half an hour ago, so things are pretty tense here. I went to have Sunday lunch at my boyfriend's mother's house. We have been together for 2 years, but obviously because of the pandemic, I have not met her in person that much, only recently a few times in the garden. So I get there and I ask her if she needs any help in the kitchen. She says it's not necessary, but there's always something to do if I want. I leave my boyfriend chatting with his dad and go and help her. I peel and chop some potatoes and onions. There is some rubbish on the counter in the way, so I ask where the bin is and she tells me. I pick up the rubbish and it's the wrapper from the chicken. I notice that the date on the wrapper is the 29th of May, which was yesterday. I mention that and ask if the chicken was frozen, and she says no. Now, I have irritable bowel syndrome and a sensitive stomach, and something about eating out-of-date food just doesn't sit well with me. When the meal is cooked and it is served and I say I don't want any chicken please, just the potatoes and vegetables is fine, my boyfriend is looking at me like I'm crazy, because I usually love chicken. His mother asks if this is because of the date, as she checked with my boyfriend in advance that my favorite meat for a Sunday roast was chicken, and my boyfriend asks for an explanation. So I just say that I'm not comfortable eating out-of-date food and the chicken expired yesterday. His mum did seem uncomfortable and a little bit taken aback, but didn't say anything, and I was perfectly happy just eating my potatoes and vegetables. His dad just covered up the awkwardness and was like, "More chicken for me. I'll have her portion, haha," whilst my boyfriend silently fumed, and I could tell he was upset. Way more upset than his mum anyway. In the car, my boyfriend blew up at me and said that his mom was very nervous about meeting new people, and she'd cooked a lovely meal and I had really insulted her. I tried explaining that I don't eat meat that's out of date unless it's been frozen before it expires, and he's saying that it's illogical that I'd be okay eating it if she froze it at 1 minute to midnight and then defrosted it again in the morning. And when he puts it like that, I concede that I do seem a little bit illogical. Because actually, I would be fine with that. To me, a use-by date on meat is a hard rule that protects people, and I don't know whether it's going to go off in an hour, or 6 hours, or 12 hours, or whatever. I just don't want to risk it. It wasn't an insult to his mum's cooking or anything, it's just a personal choice on my part to not risk getting a bad stomach. So, am I the a-hole for saying no thank you to the out-of-date chicken? I don't think his mum is an a-hole for serving it either, by the way, but I think my boyfriend is an a-hole for refusing to respect my choice and making a big deal out of it. Look, that's fair. Each to their own. If they don't want to have chicken that's 1 day out of date, each to their own in that instance. There are some chickens that probably go off and are not usable before that date, especially if they're not stored properly. I'm looking at you kitchen nightmares, you goddamn buffoons. I assume you've watched one too many Gordon Ramsay misadventures on YouTube, and it could lead anyone to thinking that 1 day old chicken is a bit too much, you know? I think where you're coming from is illogical, but you have IBS and a sensitive stomach, you do what is best for you. I don't think you're an a-hole for doing that, and I don't think that they're an a-hole for having some pushback. I think everyone just has difference in opinions here, no one attacked each other, and there's no spilt milk at the end of the day, so no a-holes here. Now in the comments, Cal Kiki says, "People who don't understand how expiration dates work truly frickin' astound me. You really think that chicken goes, oh snap, it's 30th of May, 12:01 AM, time to go bad? Expiration dates are for quality, not safety. They are not an exact science, and there's obviously a safety margin used. Use your common sense and actually inspect food quality for bad odors or colors before throwing it out or refusing to eat. You're the a-hole." I was with her until she said she would have been fine if it was frozen 1 minute before midnight and then thawed out the next morning. That just doesn't make any sense to me. That's what really got me and brought it from everyone sucks to you're off your rocker, love. Red Wing Fan 9 says, you're the a-hole. The date's on me to roll sell-by dates for the store as mandated by the governments. They don't mean the chicken is rotten or cannot be eaten. As long as it's cooked up to the proper temperature, there isn't anything wrong in eating 1 day past the sell date for chicken. You were rude to the boyfriend's mother and probably ruined your relationship with him long term. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? Jesus Christ, am I the a-hole? Calm down. You were rude and you ruined your relationship with your boyfriend over day-old chicken. How dare you? Green Seraphima says, you weren't going to get sick by eating the cooked chicken 1 day past the date, and the way you went about it was tactless. You could have eaten a small piece and then claimed to not feel well, instead of announcing to the entire table that you refused to eat the chicken because of the date. You're the a-hole. What is that suggestion? Pretending to not feel well after a small bite of the problem food would come across as way more tacky in my book. Science is Fake says, no a-holes here. Not an a-hole, but 1 day out of date is totally fine, so I think you're a bit unreasonable. Meat doesn't go off on a timer, and they build some wiggle room into those dates. If it was a month old, sure, but 1 day, don't stress so much. Stress is bad for IBS. Completely agree. You probably could have a little more tact in avoiding the chicken or only having a small portion. To be honest, if I was in your boyfriend's position, I would be mortified. And Don't Trust It says no a-holes here. I would never knowingly eat out-of-date chicken, but 1 day is a tough one. It's not even 24 hours. If it was refrigerated and properly cooked literally the next day, there is little to no chance that any harm would come from eating it. If you hadn't have seen the packaging, you would have been oblivious, and it's most likely no harm would have come to you from eating it. On the flip side, you did know that it was out of date, so you were well within your rights to politely decline eating it. Your boyfriend sucks a little for reacting so bad. Our next post is by user Jonah Var, titled, Am I the a-hole for liking my dad's stepmom more than his actual mum? Okay, so my dad's parents got divorced when he was 14 because his dad was having an affair, and his dad later married the woman that he was seeing, who was less than 10 years older than my dad at the time. It took 20 years for my dad and his dad to patch up their relationship, but my dad is still somewhat resentful of his stepmother. My dad loves his mother, but she's just so unpleasant that I can't stand being around her. She is really nice to my younger sister, but is such a jerk to me solely because I don't fit in with how she thinks kids should act. My dad's stepmom, on the other hand, is the nicest person I've ever met and actually makes an effort to understand what I'm interested in. She literally bought a Nintendo Switch just so she could play video games with me. My dad's stepmom just offered to take me on a 4-day trip, which I really wanted to go on, but when I asked him, he refused because he doesn't feel comfortable letting me stay with her. I told him to get over himself, and I told him that I'd much rather go on a trip with his stepmom than his actual mom. He got really mad at me for saying that, and said something about how I don't understand what it's like to have your life slept under you like that, and how his mother was there to support him when his stepmother wasn't. I told him that I understand, but I don't take back what I said, to which he responded by calling me an a-hole. Am I the a-hole? I guess the way you said it was a bit rude, but it doesn't make you an a-hole. If I tell someone to get over themselves and that I'd much rather one person over another, I don't think that I'm attacking that person personally. The dad is refusing to let the son go with the dad's stepmom on a trip that he really wants to go to. But yet him saying, get over yourself, this isn't about you, he takes offense to that and now OP is the a-hole? That doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, his life was swept under him like that in the past, but it's not you going on that trip, father. It is your son, who didn't experience these events and they don't affect him personally. You've rekindled your relationship with your dad. I'm sure you've said your sorries with this stepmom and had apologies given. If she's not doing anything pressing in this present time, I see no reason for him to continually hold this grudge, so I'm gonna say not the a-hole on this one. Sometimes you gotta be a little bit mean, but it doesn't make you an a-hole. Now in the comments, No Jellyfish 1208 says, not the a-hole. From what I understand, your father doesn't like his stepmom because he blames her for making his family, dad and mom, fall apart. Weird reasoning considering his dad is the one to blame, but okay. Now, this lady is nice to you. Way nicer than your dad's actual mom. It's perfectly understandable why you prefer spending time with her. Your father cannot blame you for this. Why isn't the father, the one who took vows to his wife, the one being blamed? I don't get all this hatred for the other woman. The man broke his vows to his wife. That's on him. Not the a-hole, but it's understandable your dad is protecting his mom. He shouldn't make you carry that burden. His issues shouldn't pass to you. If she's good to you, that's what matters. While it's true that women get more than their fair share of the blame in these situations, they are still at blame. Maybe 40% or even 30% depending on the situation. While it's true that OP's granddad is the one who broke his vows, the stepmom either entered into a relationship knowing he's cheating on his wife, or continued a relationship after finding out about his cheating and family. Mate, you pulled these stats out of your ass. Well, duh. There is no measured blame statistics for cheating and participating in an affair. The commenter just means that she's culpable for the affair too, since she willingly screwed a married man. Person behind a screen says, no a-holes here. If I had a situation similar to your dad, there is no scenario where I accept that stepmother who contributed to the family falling apart. What a way to start off your first meeting with a stranger. Hi, I'm the one who screwed up your family. For you, dad's stepmom treats you better, and at your age, the past doesn't really matter to you. You weren't even born yet. Nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. Sincere question, would you accept your father, or would he also be cut off? He's the one that broke the vows after all, not the stepmom. Dad gets a slight edge here because he's dad. But as you can see, it took OP a very long time to mend their relationship, and it certainly wouldn't be what it could have been had he never screwed up. For what it's worth, my mom did this minus the remarrying part, so I'm not just being one of those people speaking on something I haven't experienced. Edit, I should have added that I learned this in high school. It manifested in me being a catty teenager at the slightest bit of any interaction with my mom. And actual real-life Bear asks, if your dad cheated on your mom and married someone who was your age, are you going to be happy about it? You are not obligated to like his mom, but don't be rude about his feelings toward his dad and stepmother. Well, no, but at the same time, dad doesn't really have a right to be rude about OP's feelings towards his grandmother and step-grandmother. OP wasn't born when this all went down. How he views the situation is different, and he's going to base his relationship on how others treat him. Dad needs to get over it and let his son foster his own relationships outside of his feelings. And Huadi says, not the a-hole for liking one person over another, but you're the a-hole for saying that, in that way, at that time. Our next post is by user BriefLiving7045, titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my teacher we shouldn't do a retest after the class demanded it? So my high school teacher inquired about how we felt about the unit that we just completed. I was the first chosen to speak. This is exactly what I said. It was recorded. Yes, while I agree the test certainly felt more challenging than previous tests and quizzes, questions 6 and 8 in particular, I distinctly remember the teacher reminding us repeatedly that specifically these questions can come up as thinking questions on the test. And he went through similar variations of these questions in class. So while I understand this sentiment of a retest given the heightened difficulty, I don't think it's fair, given the 2 review periods and multiple worksheets that had questions for practice similar to 6 and 8 on the test. Hopefully we can clarify this more later. Again, this is just my opinion, and I mean no offense to the class. I did not know that I'm on the group chat while I was saying this, and that we were all planning as a class to ask for a retest because many found questions 6 and 8 unfair. Safe to say, my classmates were furious. These are some of the comments I received from my classmates. I think you might have missed that people have stuff going on outside of math class. Not everyone can spend all day doing math unless they have a spare and no job like you. Maybe stop talking. Exactly, lol. Why are you trying to make it harder for the class? So selfish. While I see that you've spent the last week doing nothing but math, I think it's unfair for you to assume that everyone has done the same. Students have jobs, another class, family, and so much more that you don't have. Shame on you. The moment I spoke in class, I received a notification that I was suddenly blocked off of our private group chat. One of my classmates emailed me a profane text and told me that they were only being nice on the teacher discussion about their disapproval of my comment and that they were making some very disturbing jokes about me in the private group chat that we shared. He told me that I should be ashamed of myself for being a teacher's pet and a snitch. I shared these comments with my older sister, and I told her that I personally emailed all of them with an apology, but it's been a week and they haven't responded. She said, "They will never forgive you, and you'll have to do all of your group projects alone now. This is why Mum says you don't have social skills. What a loser you are." My teacher says that he told the class he'll decide whether we'll do the retest or not in the coming days. And a classmate told me that if my teacher didn't grant the retest, that they will collectively email the teacher a lie that I was confident about my test result because I cheated. They told me they'll fake screenshots from our group chat to make it seem like I was bragging about it in our group chat. I've apologized over 50 times in the past week, but they all said that it was too late, and they won't stop until I'm punished. Look, honestly, I can see how it comes across as, OP was out of touch here. OP said some stupid things here that pissed off a lot of people, and that they came off as braggy, and that, OP had no job and they could just focus on this. God, you came off as such an asshole for the way you said that, OP. Not everyone has as much time or little commitments as you do. But come on, I just sound like a bully saying that. Those are excuses. Those are all excuses. OP screwed up. OP made a mistake by saying this publicly and not privately. But even then, the bull rush, the dog pile mentality, the crabs in a bucket dragging each other down that's happening, unacceptable. It just reminds me of high school and primary school and all the bullying that goes on there. This situation is not OP's fault. This is a bunch of people scapegoating OP so they can get what they want and then making him just an outcast for the rest of the time. This attitude and these actions by people completely destroy people emotionally and socially. I don't really know what you can do about these things because, once it's happened, that's it. It seems like he can't come back from it. So, OP not the a-hole in my opinion. Now in the comments, RB1327 says, "Everyone sucks here. Your teacher is an a-hole for not asking for feedback to be submitted privately. You were an a-hole for the pompous way you responded, instead of just answering, 'The test was challenging, but I thought the extra worksheets and review periods were helpful enough.' Your classmates are a-holes for attacking and blocking you for answering the teacher's question, and blaming you for whatever the teacher's decision ends up being. To be fair though, the classmates were complaining that the test was difficult and unfair in a group discussion. The teacher asked, 'Did anyone think it was fair?' And here enters OP on their soapbox. OP said he was the first chosen to speak, so I took that as the teacher called on him first. That's what I thought, then he clarified in a comment. And OP replies, 'Yes, I'll post the clarification here. I'm sorry if I caused any confusion.' In our in-class discussions after the test, two exactly, of my classmates were telling the teacher how they found questions 6 and 8 unfair in the chat. He asked the class if anyone felt that it was fair on the mic, and that's when I raised my hand and spoke exactly what you read in my original comment. Meanwhile, on our private group chat, the class was collectively planning to ask the teacher for a retest. I didn't see the private group chat at the time I spoke, which led to the class collectively calling me an a-hole. The class teacher even said that he may not consider a retest because of my comment, and thanked me for confirming his own thoughts. I didn't mean to sound like a teacher's pet and a snitch, but I guess I definitely sounded like it. I know it's a little confusing, but I was the first to speak vocally, not the first to speak overall, as there were 2 students who commented something about questions 6 and 8 in the chat function of Microsoft Teams, which prompted my teacher to ask the question vocally on the mic. To make the orders clear, 1. 2 students comment on the Microsoft Teams chat that they felt the test was unfair because of questions 6 and 8. These comments were a little rude and made fun of the teacher. 2. This prompts the teacher to ask on the mic if anyone felt the test was fair. 3. That's when I rose my hand and spoke that I felt the test was fair. Meanwhile, while numbers 1 and 2 were happening, in our private group chat on Instagram that the teacher doesn't have access to, the class had collectively decided to ask for a retest. I did not see the group chat at the time and had my notifications off because we had just finished a test. Hope this clears the order. Still makes me the a-hole though. Thank you all again for your comments. And Scene replies to that, I mean, you're the a-hole a bit? Probably due to not knowing how to manage social situations. I don't doubt a bit that your opinion is absolutely true and the test was completely fair. Also, the teacher asked for comments. But why the hell would you go out and volunteer to speak in such a way that is clearly detrimental to the rest of your colleagues? I understand the will to answer truthfully, but you could have remained silent unless asked directly. And even if asked directly, you could have been more categorical and affirmative. Something like, well, I found the question fair enough, but I have less hours of class than other people, and these are the kinds of problems I enjoy a lot working on. But they were considerably harder than what we typically expect. See? Basically the same thing, but talking about only your experience. And even that wouldn't have made you many friends. Deleted says, everyone sucks here. I think it's weird that you wouldn't just allow it. I don't see what would be unfair. If you're someone who got these questions right the first time, then a second time shouldn't be an issue. You may even get the chance to get a better score. Someone else getting a second chance has no merit on your life and isn't unfair to you in any way. If I were you, I would simply suggest that if they do the second test, the final score should be based on the better test score. This is what my professors did. If they ever did makeup tests, they would grade it based on whichever test the person got the better score on, just on the off chance you get a worst score the second time. That being said, them crap-talking you is unacceptable. I would tell your teacher what they said just in case. And ReadMr.com says, not the a-hole. And share their bullying, threats, and texts with the teacher if you don't care about being alone. College will be better. You don't have anything to apologize for either. Leave it. They are assholes. Please take screenshots of everything you can and send to the teacher ASAP, explaining the whole situation. This is very serious bullying that they're doing. They're trying to get you possibly kicked out of school, depending on school's policy, because of a comment you made. That's ridiculously unfair. For real, they're all ganging up on OP, full-on blackmailing them and trying to get them in academic trouble with the school. It is horrible bullying and very serious.